Hey everyone, I am Magical Hacker, and this is episode number 7 of the Eminence Podcast, the non-CEDH Commander Podcast, where I help you in the command zone with your deck building skills, and I help you on the battlefield with your deck piloting skills. This podcast is brought to you by Dawson Graham and the rest of my patrons at patreon.com/magicalhacker. Today's topic, chosen by Dawson Graham, is what commander should you build next? Building commanders seems like something that a lot of people just do without even thinking, and it's true. People do it without thinking. They're like, oh, I see this new commander, I am definitely going to build this. But then there are other players who are probably like me, thinking like, oh my gosh, there's like 10 commanders that I could build if I wanted to. How do I decide which one I'm going to build next? And I'm going to bring you here 3 ideas that should hopefully help pinpoint that direction of how you can think about building the next commander. So the first question I think we got to talk about is, of course, you got to build a commander that you like. I don't think it's ever a great idea for somebody to go and build a commander that they don't like, and after they play with it for a little bit, they still don't like it, but they still have it and they still play it. They don't like it. Like, I don't think anybody's saying that. I don't think that's one thing that you should be thinking about at all. What I do think people should be thinking about is, what is it that I have the most fun with? Let's say, for example, you have 0 commander decks. Or maybe you have commander decks, but you're wanting to start from a clean slate. And I have done that before. I had a couple of them. I think at the time I had like 5 or 6. And I said, you know what? I just want to start completely over and just have a bunch of decks that I like. I don't want to have decks that I don't like. Let's just start over. We're going to scrap everything that I've got and let's just start over from the beginning. I think the first deck you've got to build is got to be something that you know for a fact you are going to love it, like absolutely love it. And then the first deck that filled that spot for me after I had scrapped all my decks was Nahiri the Lithomancer. I don't know if I mentioned this story before on my YouTube channel at some point, but I know I haven't done it in the podcast. So if you will humor me, I'm going to talk about that just for a little bit. So this was a while ago. I had been playing my commander decks, and they were okay. They were fine. I wasn't really finding a whole lot of joy in playing them. I felt like I was kind of churning my wheels for no reason, and I wasn't really getting anywhere when I was trying to fix them and to get them better. And I thought, there are a couple of commanders that maybe will do the rules better, but I don't know if I want to take them apart. And so I said, you know what? Let me just bite the bullet. At that time, the thing that really inspired me was I had said, you know what, I'm not going to play my decks tonight. I want to borrow some of my friends' decks. So I asked my friends, hey, does anybody have a deck that they would be okay with me borrowing? And at that time, and I would say even now, there's a player that I'm good friends with. I was good friends with him at the time. And she said, hey, take a look at these decks. Pick any one of them that you want and just play it. And I took a look through their decks, and they had some very thematic decks. That's not usually how I build, but some thematic decks, and I saw Nahiri the Lithomancer, and I said, you know what, let me play this one. I haven't seen this one a whole lot. People don't typically play it. I know I like equipments. In fact, when I first started playing Commander in the entire format, before I even built a paper deck, I built a list online of Kemba Ka Regent, and so that's an equipment deck in mono white. So I saw Nahiri the Lithomancer, and I said, I like equipment. Let me go ahead and try this one out. And I'm telling you, I had so much fun with that deck. Usually, if I'm playing somebody else's deck, I'm not going to have as much fun as if I'm building my own deck. But I had more fun with that deck than I had with any of my decks that I had. And that was kind of the moment where I realized I want to just start over from scratch. So Nahiri the Lithomancer, in case you haven't seen it before, let me just read it off real quick. It's a legendary planeswalker that has the text, "This can be your commander." It costs 3 generic and 2 white. It's a Nahiri planeswalker. I believe it enters with 4 loyalty. I'm doing this from memory, so hopefully I don't make myself look like an idiot. But it has 4 loyalty. It has a +2, where you can create a 1/1 core soldier creature token and equip any equipment you control to it. It has a -3, or is it a -2? I think it's a -2, actually. It's a -2. You can put any equipment card from your hand or graveyard onto the battlefield. And then it has a -8, I want to say, or a -10, something along those lines, where you create a token. It's a indestructible equipment It has the ability, equipped creature gets +5/+5 and double strike, or something along those lines. The ultimate, honestly, I don't usually do a whole lot of that one, so I don't remember it too often. But I remember playing it, and just the way that I could cheat the equip costs, I can create the tokens that equip to the equipment. I could reanimate the equipment from the graveyard once it gets destroyed. I could put really expensive equipment from my hands onto the battlefield, and I can do all this stuff. If she goes away, she gets attacked, no problem. I'm surviving a little bit longer. I can set up my equipment stuff. If people don't attack her, then eventually I can get a pretty cool ultimate. Like I said, I don't get it too often. Usually I just keep going up in her loyalty so that I have plenty of loyalty to work with for recursion, as equipment do tend to get destroyed at some point. But I remember playing this a lot, and so I would say this: if you don't have any commander decks, or if you, like me, are wanting to just start from scratch, find one type of deck that you like to play. In this case, for me, it was equipment. For you, it might be something else. Maybe you like tokens. You know you're going to like a token deck. Find the token commander that you're going to like the most, and then do that, and go completely just devote all of your energy to getting that deck awesome, right? Or maybe for you, it might be an artifact deck, and you want to play artifacts. Maybe you might like a tribal deck, and you're like, oh, I'm going to do zombies, or I'm going to do dragons, right? You're going to do whatever you want. Just do that for the first deck. There is a series of tweets that I posted recently talking about the spread of the different types of commanders when we're looking at it from the perspective of the number of colors. And the end result, I found that since the inception of Commander, we've had a pretty steady percentage of decks that are commanders that are monocolored and commanders that are multicolored, and eventually even the number of commanders that are partner based, meaning you have 2 cards in the command zone. All those have stayed pretty constant, pretty similar. And so in 2022, the numbers are about 5/16 of all commanders that have been printed since the start of the Commander format, and specifically since the start of Wizards making Commander product, which was back in 2011 with the first Commander precons. That is the one that has Kaalia. 5/16 of all commanders were monocolored, 9/16 were multicolored, and those two numbers, those two percentages, do not include any commanders that allow you to have more than one card in the command zone. If we take all of those cards and separate them out, you have the last 2 out of 16, or the last 1/8 of all commanders, fit into the category of allowing yourself to play 2 cards in the command zone. So you have either 2 cards in the command zone, that's 1/8 of all commanders. The other 7/8 are made up either of multicolored commanders or monocolored / colorless commanders. And I said the numbers: monocolored is 5/16, partner is 2/16, and then multicolored is 9/16. If you add that all up, it gets to 16. So if we were to take a look at this percentage, and we were to say, okay, in order, what would be the color identities of each deck that I would build? So let's say I have 0. Really, the number one most common type is a multicolored commander, so it makes sense the first deck that anybody has is probably going to be multicolored, although really, honestly, you just build whatever you like. If you like partners, go for partners. Do that as your first commander deck, and do that one. All right, and then number 2, let's say you do build the multicolored. The next one after that is going to be monocolored. So if you have 2 decks, one is multicolored, one is monocolored. If you have 3 decks, the next deck that you're building is a multicolored deck. For the 4th deck, something with partners. For the 5th deck, another multicolored commander. For the 6th deck, another monocolored commander. 7th deck and 8th deck are going to be 2 more multicolored commanders. The 9th deck is going to be another monocolored commander. The 10th is going to be another multicolored. So I'm going down the list saying, what am I building in order? And here I'm at the 10th. We're doing multicolored, then monocolored, then multicolored, then partner, then multicolored, then monocolored, then multicolored. And that brings you all the way up to 16. So once you get to that point, you've hit the full percentage. You can just start over, right? So you might, at the end of the day, if you have 32 decks, 10 of them might be monocolored, right? 4 of them will involve partners of some sort, and then the rest of them will all be multicolored. And so that's a pretty balanced way to look at it. So that's kind of another angle. So first of all, you want to build, the next commander you want to build should be a fun one, first of all. Then the next thing to think about is you should try to open yourself up. Don't limit yourself only to one type of commander. If you love partners, try some of the commanders that don't have partner-like abilities on them, right? Try playing just one card in the command zone. If you love multicolored cards, try playing some monocolored commanders. There's plenty of them out there. You're bound to find something you're going to like. So if you haven't tried that one out, I think you're hurting yourself by being closed off to it. So that's, I think, the next angle. And then from that point on, once you've got that, then it becomes more of an opinion-based thing. What do I think is a great strategy or great success story when you're picking your next commander? Is it a good idea to pick an old commander or a new commander? In my opinion, I think if you're playing a commander that's less than 2 years old, people are still not 100% familiar with it. They might feel a little bit scared and thinking, okay, this might be a really scared commander. I haven't seen it. It's so new. I haven't seen it a whole lot. People have not really had a whole lot of time to figure out how good it is. They might be afraid of you as a result of you playing a newer commander. So if I had to make a recommendation for myself and for anybody who's listening, I would say let's start off with something that's 2 years old or older. That would be my recommendation. Second to that, should we play a really popular commander or a really unpopular commander? And I think this might be kind of obvious where I stand. I definitely think it's worth playing a commander that's not very popular. And specifically, I like to look outside the top 100 and maybe even sometimes outside the top 200 in terms of the top commanders on EDHREC. So if you go to edhrec.com, you go to the top bar where it says commanders, you click on that and go to where it says top commanders. It'll show you the commanders in order of popularity. And so all you got to do is just make sure that you pick a commander that's outside, like I said, the top 100 or even the top 200. I think is outside of that, you're good. Because once you hit 201 and lower, you're at such a low level of popularity. People are going to say, first of all, especially if it's not a new commander, they're going to say people have had plenty of time to break this commander, and I haven't seen it that much. So obviously, it can't be that strong, right? No, that's not right. You can have a lot of really, really strong commanders that are outside the top 200 of the popularity. It's just sometimes they're not as popular because they're not as easy to build. And I certainly do find that the harder it is for me to build a deck, the more joy and more fun I have playing that deck. So that's kind of the next thing that I think about. Now, what if you are thinking, okay, I don't know what I should be doing, right? I have some decks, but I don't know what I really want to do. Well, if you are on YouTube or on Spotify, in the description of this podcast episode, you will find a link to a Google Sheet that I posted where all you've got to do is just answer what decks you've got, what the color identity is. And then it will automatically recommend the next color identity that you can build that will most complement your decks that you currently have. So it incorporates a couple of different things in there, but one of the things that it incorporates is the current color identities you have, the current color combinations you have. Yes, those are two different things. Meaning if I have a bunch of decks that have all the combinations of two colors, but I don't have any decks that have white and black together at the same time, it'll recommend as a higher result cards or color combinations that do have both white and black. So it gives you a home for white-black cards that you currently don't have a place to put. So it kind of combines many different things. I remember when I first posted it to Reddit, and this was years ago. People have said, hey, it's broken. It keeps giving me monocolored commanders. And it's a common result because not a whole lot of players are actually playing monocolored commanders, respective of the number of monocolored commanders that are available. So just keep that in mind. You can definitely outsource the thought process of what color identity you want to pick next to that Google Sheet. I think it's a very good idea. I think it's going to be very helpful, very successful. A lot of players have really liked it. But if you get a monocolored result, don't be surprised. I think, like I said, most players are not playing monocolored commanders to the level that they currently are. Part of that has to do with WotC not printing a whole lot of cards that incentivize that, but that's a topic for another day, and we're not going to go into that today. So, we've talked about a couple of things. Play a commander that you find fun. Play a commander that fits the color identity that you haven't done a whole lot of. And, of course, the Google Sheet link down below will be helpful for that. Play a commander that's older rather than one of the newer ones. And this is certainly an optional or opinion-based one, because maybe you're a player that only likes to play commanders from the brand new set. You know what? If that's you, go right ahead. I think that's certainly an idea that a lot of players use. A lot of players act that way, and that's fine. I don't think it's a bad thing. I don't think it's something that you need to avoid. But if you want to take if you're interested in my perspective and in terms of why I don't do that, I think strategically it does help you have more fun playing when your deck isn't being overly targeted by your opponents as a result of the commander being so brand new that they're afraid of it. So older commanders, I think, are a good thing to go for. Unpopular commanders are a good thing to go for, again, for the same reason as number 3. And then I mentioned that we would talk about at least 3 things to consider. I changed my mind. I went up to 5. There's one 5th thing that I'd like to talk about. And this one is really the wild card, right? If you are a player that, let's say you say, I only want to play commanders that have hats, or I only want to play commanders that are humans, right? If there's something that you need to find in your commander, I would say next deck you should build should be one commander that certainly fits that theme, and then also build another deck at the same time that doesn't fit that theme. And it's like the number 1 commander you would want to build if it had that theme. So let's say I mentioned before, I only play commanders that have hats. If every commander had a hat, what would be the number 1 commander that I would play? What's the number 1 commander without a hat that I think is interesting? And I think it's worth building 2 decks at the same time so that you can experience both and think about, is it great that I have this kind of this little quirk that I like to follow, or can I have some more fun by doing something that's different than that? That's something I think is worth thinking about and experiencing, because once you build your commander deck, the next thing you'll be doing is actually playing it out and trying it. And so you might be like me, and being able to play test on Magic Online is very, very helpful, because even at 3 a.m. while I'm eating a burrito, I can pull it up and play with players all around the world, talk to somebody from France, talk to somebody from California who's like me and has a hard time staying asleep, right? So I can do this. I can play my brand new deck with all sorts of players all around the world. So I think there's a couple of things to keep in mind. The color identity of the commander matters. The age of the commander matters. How much fun you can have with the commander matters. The popularity of the commander, and I think EDH Rec is a great resource for analyzing that. I think that matters too. And then lastly, anything else. There's other things that certainly matter that are going to be impactful to the way that you're going to have fun with that commander. So this is a bit of a shorter episode for this podcast, but really, that's my opinion. So what are your thoughts? Do you agree with me, or do you feel like I'm missing something totally obvious? I'd love to hear your thoughts in a comment at youtube.com/magicalhackermtg or twitter.com/magical__hacker. If you want to pick the topic for an episode of the Eminence Podcast, check out patreon.com/magicalhacker. Thank you again to Dawson Graham for picking the episode today. Thank you to all of my patrons, and thank you for listening. Stay awesome, everybody.